There's an island just off the coast of Venice that no one is allowed to visit. It's not because it's dangerous in the usual way. There are no armed guards, no radiation, no political secrets, and yet boats avoid it. Locals speak of it in whispers. And the government? They've sealed it off entirely. No tourists, no residents, just a crumbling pile of ruins sitting quietly in the lagoon. But the silence on Poveglia Island isn't empty. It's layered plague pits, asylums and fires, and something else. Something left behind that no one seems willing to name. Poveglia Island doesn't stand out from a distance. It floats just off the coast of Venice, small and overgrown. Its buildings sunken into the soft earth like collapsed tombs. But this quiet little island has a history that's anything but peaceful. Beneath the vines, beneath the stone, beneath even the soil, lie layers of something older and heavier than just time. Plague victims, burning trenches, medical experiments, and stories locals still won't repeat. It started centuries ago, when Venice was a trading empire full of narrow canals and dense crowds. When disease arrived, it arrived quickly, clinging to ships and drifting into the city with a quiet force. There was no cure, no way to slow it, and no room in the hospitals for the sick. So the Venetian government needed somewhere else. Somewhere out of the way. They chose Poveglia. It became a lazaretto, a quarantine island. Anyone showing symptoms was sent there, no matter how mild. It didn't matter who you were. Merchant, sailor, mother, child. If you coughed at the wrong time, you could find yourself on a boat heading to the island. And once you were taken, you didn't come back. People died quickly in those days. The disease was fast and the care was minimal. Bodies were buried in mass graves, sometimes dozens at a time. When space ran out, the bodies were burned. The fires burned for weeks, then months. Ash and smoke settled over the trees. Over time, the soil became a mixture of dirt and human remains. Some believe that more than 100,000 people died there, and that the island itself is now part ash, part bone, part earth. After the plague, the island was closed, but it never lost its reputation. Fishermen avoided casting their nets near Poveglia. Boats would drift farther around the lagoon just to avoid getting too close. Sometimes the tide would bring up strange pieces of the past. Scorched fragments of pottery, melted glass, darkened teeth. For a time, the island remained mostly empty. Then in 1922, it was reopened again, this time as a psychiatric hospital. The idea was simple: treat those who couldn't be cared for in the city. But records from the facility are scarce. Some were lost, others were never kept. The buildings were old and crumbling, never truly meant to house patients. Stories began to circulate. Patients complaining of voices, of shadows in the hallways, of being locked in rooms without explanation. Local legend says the head doctor conducted unusual procedures in the old bell tower. Neighbors across the water claimed they could hear screaming late into the night. According to one version of the story, the doctor slowly lost his mind. He began seeing the same things his patients described. One night, he climbed to the top of the tower and jumped. The fall didn't kill him immediately. Some say he lay there, broken and whispering until something pulled him into the fog. The asylum closed not long after. The official reason was structural decay, but many suspected something more. Since the 1960s, Poveglia has been abandoned. The buildings are still there, but they're barely standing. Roofs have caved in. Ivy has taken over the walls. Trees grow through windows. The entire island smells of mildew, salt, and slow rot. The Italian government has officially banned access. You can't legally go there without permission, and permission is almost never granted. A few researchers have managed short visits. They report strange echoes, rusted surgical tables, and empty rooms where the walls seem to breathe. Some say the silence is the worst part. Not peaceful, but just still, dead still. Locals won't talk much about it. If you ask, they'll change the subject. Some say you can still hear the bell tower ringing, even though the bell was removed long ago. Others claim to have seen lights moving at night, or figures watching from broken windows. But most just look away when you mention the name. Because in Venice, a city of illusion, there are still some places too real, too raw to be absorbed into the postcard version of history. Poveglia is one of them. It sits in the lagoon, crumbling year by year, holding on to the silence, the ash, and the memory of everyone who never left. After the asylum finally closed its doors in the 1960s, no grand statement was made. There was no announcement, no ceremony, no demolition, just silence. The doctors left. The patients were relocated or simply disappeared from records. The boats stopped arriving. And the gates, once bustling with medical staff and supply runs, were locked, not officially condemned, just ignored. As if Italy itself had quietly decided to forget the island even existed. And the silence, dense and physical, remained. For decades, Poveglia sat untouched. Nature moved in slowly. Ivy crawled across abandoned stone walls. Trees grew through cracks in stairwells. Vines crept across tiled floors where gurneys once rolled. The bell tower stood watch, its top now missing the bell it once held. Tour boats steered wide. Locals stopped pointing toward it. Fishermen wouldn't cast their lines within sight of it. If asked, they'd shrug and change the subject. They called it cursed. Not loudly, just enough to be heard and never questioned. In 2014, the Italian government tried to do what governments often do with forgotten land. They attempted to lease it. A 99-year lease, to be exact. It was a quiet listing, quickly noticed by wealthy investors and curious developers. One businessman, Luigi Brugnaro, placed the winning bid. He promised to restore the island, turn the decaying hospital into a luxury hotel, add gardens, maybe even offer tours. But the public resisted. Not with protests in the streets, but with something more effective: disinterest. Petitions were signed. Historians raised eyebrows. Locals warned that the land was unstable. Restoration experts claimed the buildings were beyond saving. Engineers reviewed the soil and found it unsuitable. No company wanted the construction contract. Something about the place, they said, a heaviness, a weight. Workers didn't even want to step off the boat. The deal unraveled, quietly, like everything else about Poveglia. The lease was revoked, the investors pulled out, and the island stayed locked. Urban explorers began visiting in secret, sneaking past warning signs and docking at night. They brought cameras, flashlights, and thermal scanners. Most stayed less than an hour. Their videos show long, empty corridors overtaken by moss, cracked floor tiles buried in leaves, rusted medical tools scattered on countertops. Gurneys still sit in place. Filing cabinets hang open, their paper contents long melted by rain and mold. In the asylum wing, paint peels in layers thick as bark. Visitors whisper even when alone. Several describe hearing things, not voices exactly, but movement, the subtle scuff of shoes. In one recording, a door creaks open behind the camera, but the room was locked. When questioned, the explorers never return. Not out of fear, they say, but because the place pushes back, it doesn't want visitors. Others who've managed access, like researchers or surveyors, describe the sensation more subtly. A muffled pressure in the air, a tension without threat. One botanist noted strange plant behavior. The ivy doesn't follow light as expected. Some trees grow at odd angles, their roots breaking into walls instead of anchoring into soil. Samples were taken. The results weren't shared. A marine biologist studying algae in the surrounding water remarked on how little wildlife passed through. No birds on the shore. No fish near the docks, just silence. Even in its decay, the island maintains a kind of presence. Not screaming for attention, but insisting on solitude. Boats that drift too close report engine trouble. Radios fall to static, compasses twitch. Guides who once offered private lagoon tours have removed it from their routes. Too much trouble, they'll say. Or more honestly, no one ever asks. And still it remains owned on paper, locked behind red tape, with structures too fragile to renovate and a history too dense to escape. Occasionally, another investor expresses interest. A developer from Milan, a tourism board representative, a documentary crew. Each time the plan is reviewed, discussed, and quietly shelved. Poveglia doesn't welcome change. It has no interest in reinvention. It isn't trying to frighten anyone, but it won't be disturbed. It resists with silence. It waits, falling slowly into itself. Crumbling inch by inch, roofs collapse. Trees widen their grip. The old hospital breathes rot and salt. No headlines mark its decline. No one argues for its preservation. And so it sits alone, waiting, unowned, not because no one tried, but because no one could stay. Most haunted places become legends because people talk about them. Stories passed down, names whispered, tales growing taller over time. But Poveglia is different. The island's power doesn't come from how often it's mentioned, but from how deeply it's avoided. For decades, it hasn't just been locked to the public, it's been locked out of memory. Not erased exactly, just quietly buried under the weight of disuse and deliberate forgetting. The people who live in Venice know it's there. They pass it, They see its silhouette through the mist, but very few speak of it. Tour guides don't mention it on their routes. Maps leave it nameless. Families with old ties to the island treat it as a gap in conversation, something not to be stirred. Ask locals and you'll hear the same phrase in different forms. We just don't go there. Still, some stories find their way out. Not bold declarations, but quiet fragments. Fishermen, even today, steer clear of the waters surrounding Poveglia. Some say it's just out of tradition. Others say it's because the fish near the island come out wrong. Too pale, too soft. Their eyes clouded before they reach the surface. One boat captain claimed his nets came back full of tangled, burned reeds and dark silt, with nothing alive inside. A few older residents recall relatives whispering that bones used to wash ashore during storms. No one knows how long ago that stopped, or if it ever did. The strangest part is the silence. Not the absence of noise, but a kind of active quiet. Those who have stepped foot on the island describe a pressure not physical but mental, a weight in the chest, a sense that you've crossed into something that doesn't want you there. One visitor said it felt like being watched, not by a person but by the place itself. Another described it as walking into a room where something bad just happened, but no one will say what. There are no loud hauntings here. No jump scares, no drama, just stillness, and the way it clings to your clothes when you leave. Some believe the island carries a residual energy, not from ghosts but from repetition. Centuries of suffering compressed into one small patch of land. Waves of fear, grief and isolation, layered again and again. Quarantine ships, plague pits, hospital beds, screaming halls, and then silence, not peace, just the end of noise. This kind of repetition, some say, imprints itself onto stone and soil. And when enough fear has settled into a place, it doesn't need ghosts. The place remembers on its own. There are also subtler tales, stories not of what people saw but of what they didn't. Explorers who walked through the asylum's ruins and later realized they didn't hear any birds. No insects, no wind, even with trees moving. One described it as if the sound had been edited out of the air. In one documented account, a drone flown over the island crashed for no reason mid-flight. The footage stopped just as it passed over the hospital roof. The owner retrieved the drone later that evening. It was intact, but the memory card was wiped. And then there's the bell. The tower on Poveglia once rang daily during the hospital's operation. The bell was removed long ago, but occasionally, people on nearby islands say they've heard it. A single distant chime at night. Not loud, not regular, just there, like a memory resurfacing when no one asked for it. One fisherman claimed to have heard it twice, both times while fishing alone. He packed up immediately and didn't return to those waters for months. But even with these stories, no single legend defines the island. That's what makes Poveglia different. Most haunted places have one great tale. A murder, a ghost, a mystery. Poveglia doesn't. It has thousands of deaths, countless nameless victims, an asylum with no happy endings, and a silence that's been carefully preserved, not broken. The fear isn't of what might happen, but of what already did, and what lingers because no one ever spoke it out loud. It's not a tourist attraction. It's not part of Venice's identity. It's a gap, a blank space, and that's what makes it so heavy. There's no guidebook, no plaque, no curated history. Just crumbling buildings and the weight of being left behind. In a world that moves fast, renovates, explains, and forgets, Poveglia resists. It doesn't ask to be remembered. It just waits, slowly falling back into the lagoon, piece by piece. And even now, with no signs of life, no boats docking and no lights in the windows, there's still a feeling that something inside is listening. Quietly, patiently, as if the island itself is keeping count. Across the narrow stretch of water that separates Venice from Poveglia, life has always looked very different. From the earliest days of the island's grim purpose, the contrast between the two shores has been hard to ignore. On one side, a place of silence, rot, and death. On the other, a city known for its beauty, music, and wealth. The island was not far from the marble bridges and delicate gondolas. It wasn't distant in miles, only in mood. In Venice, the markets stayed busy. Artists painted grand frescoes inside cool stone churches. Glassblowers shaped molten beauty into chandeliers for palaces. Lovers strolled through tight alleyways lit by lanterns. And all the while, just beyond the view of most, a different story unfolded on Poveglia. A story of quarantine ships, open pits, and barred hospital windows. The elite of Venice dined on spices brought in from far ports, while plague victims were ferried to the island in silence. No grand procession, no ceremony, just long, quiet boat rides and a disappearing shoreline. Venice was always aware, but it chose distance over confrontation. As the island filled with the sick and dying, Venice turned inward, protecting its image. The palaces remained lit, music continued to drift through the canals, and the carnival never ceased. Behind the golden masks and painted fans, there was an understanding. What happens on the island must remain there. Some called it mercy, others saw it as convenience. Either way, the rhythm of Venice moved forward, untouched by the chaos only a mile away. Wealth allowed that separation. The rich could afford walls, could pay for privacy, could write new narratives, and so the city continued to evolve, while the island decayed in place. No visitors, no inquiries, no memorials. In the 18th century, Venice reached a cultural peak. Theaters sparkled, paintings stretched across domed ceilings. Music was written to echo perfectly between stone walls. Meanwhile, Poveglia's buildings grew heavier with sorrow. Hospital corridors filled with whispers and restraints. Gardens overgrew into the paths. The bell tower, still intact then, rang not in celebration but as a quiet metronome for loss. Each sound it made marked another passing, another name never recorded. Another body moved closer to the pits. The contrast deepened. Venice painted over its history. Poveglia absorbed it. Even in modern times, the contrast hasn't softened. Today, Venice is a place of curated beauty. Visitors arrive from around the world. They photograph the canals, sip wine beside glowing buildings, and marvel at the preservation of centuries-old architecture. They hear the lapping of water, the hum of vaporettos, and the gentle creak of gondolas. Tour guides speak of Casanova, of opera, of the Republic's maritime triumphs, but not of the island just across the lagoon. Poveglia is visible from many balconies. You can see the hospital roof, the leaning tower, the tree line overtaking the buildings. But the guides don't mention it. The brochures leave it unnamed, and the hotels, some offering luxury suites with views that face the island, simply describe it as a quiet part of the lagoon. This silence is no accident. It's preservation, but of a different kind. Not of buildings or art, but of denial. Venice remembers selectively. The city celebrates what fits the image, what enhances its mythology. Poveglia, by contrast, challenges that story. It reminds people of disease, of desperation, of abandonment. It doesn't contribute to romance or elegance, and so it's left out, locked away. The buildings remain, but no one speaks of them. The records exist, but are rarely studied. The stories survive only in fragments, told in half-voice, by those who still remember to look. There's something haunting about that separation, about the idea that luxury and decay can exist so close, divided only by water. That one city can float on celebration, while its forgotten shadow quietly sinks. That visitors sip cocktails in ornate courtyards, while a few hundred meters away, vines pull hospital walls into the ground. This isn't fiction. It's not symbolism. It's geography at real space, real history, real contrast. And so Poveglia waits, not just outside the city, but outside the story. It has become the space between sentences, a place not erased, but simply not said. While Venice basks in admiration, its darkest twin sits in the lagoon, quietly refusing to disappear. Its silence in the end may be the loudest thing left. And now the lights of Venice flicker across the lagoon, soft and gold, resting gently on the water's surface. Boats drift by in the distance, unaware or uninterested, their wakes small and quiet. The air grows still. The buildings on Poveglia remain untouched. No tourists, no footsteps. Just the slow erosion of time peeling paint from forgotten walls and ivy climbing into broken windows. The silence here is thick, not empty but full, heavy with the weight of all that happened and all that was never said aloud. You imagine standing there on the shore with the quiet pressing in on every side. There are no screams now, no bells, no shouting orders or wheeled stretchers. Just wind moving through empty doorways and the occasional groan of old wood settling into the earth. There are no signs telling you where to go, no markers, no warnings, only ruins. But it isn't the kind of ruin that asks to be explored. It asks to be left alone. And so it has been, for decades, for lifetimes, not sealed away with force but ignored into disappearance. A gap in the story, a pause that no one wants to break. And yet, it's still there. It hasn't sunk, it hasn't vanished. The hospital still stands, the tower still leans, the island still waits. As you drift now towards sleep, you might picture it, Poveglia in the dark, surrounded by slow-moving water, held still by its own memory. A quiet place, heavy with history but light with sound. A place that doesn't demand to be remembered but somehow is. Floating just out of reach, just out of sight. Just enough to be forgotten by day but remembered here, in the stillness of night. A place that stays locked not just by law, but by the weight of everything that happened there. And so we leave it now. Not solved, not reclaimed, not explained away. Just left where it always was. Across the water, waiting, silent, watching the lights of Venice flicker and fade.
Welcome. Let your thoughts drift far back in time to a world before electricity, before writing, before cities, when the sky was vast and quiet and nights were filled only with the sounds of wind, fire, and slow breathing. Imagine a group of early humans gathered around a fire, their hands worn from travel, their eyes reflecting the flames. Something earthy burns nearby, a bundle of dried leaves or bark, and as the smoke rises, they breathe it in slowly, not knowing why, only that it changes something. The edges of the world soften, thoughts drift, eyes close, and dreams begin before sleep. Long before modern science, before medicine and ritual, humans were experimenting with the plants around them. Some were bitter, some sweet, and a few changed how the world felt, how light, sound, and memory unfolded. These plants were noticed, remembered, and passed down, not in books, but through habit and tradition. Getting high then was not escape, but curiosity, comfort, and survival. To understand what getting high was like in the caveman era, we must first understand daily life. Life in the Paleolithic period was deeply rooted in the land. Each day began with the sun, following the rhythms of weather, hunger, and movement. Small groups of 20 or 30 traveled together, hunting game, gathering edible plants, and finding shelter. There were no permanent homes, no farms, no writing, only memory, instinct, and trial. Food came from roots, tubers, berries, and nuts. Tools were carved from stone and bone. Shelters were built from branches, skins, and earth. Fire was essential for warmth, cooking, and protection. In this world, people learned by watching. They noticed which berries birds avoided, which leaves made skin itch, and which mushrooms upset stomachs. But they also noticed that some plants neither fed nor harmed, but changed perception, making the world feel slower, stranger, or more dreamlike. At first, these changes seemed accidental, a strange reaction to a new root, a vision after chewing a leaf. But over time, patterns emerged. Some plants were remembered, used again, and became part of daily life, not for entertainment, but for quiet exploration. The boundaries between medicine, ritual, and mind-altering experience blurred. A plant that dulled pain could also calm fear. One that caused dizziness could inspire dreams. Imagine a small clearing at dusk. A woman places dried herbs on a fire. Smoke rises, sharp and earthy. Others sit nearby, silent, waiting, breathing in warmth, letting sensation settle. No words, just practice, repeated and refined. Getting high was part of the human relationship with nature. Watching animals, humans learned even more. Some birds and mammals consumed fermented fruit. Others chewed specific roots when sick. These observations were not lost. Early humans tried things carefully, remembered what worked, learned to mix herbs, boil bark, and dry leaves. Slowly, certain plants earned a place in their routine. Across regions, substances differed. In Europe, psychoactive mushrooms. In Africa, seeds and roots with stimulant effects. In the Americas, early tobacco and herbs. These were not party drugs, but part of life, sometimes to dull pain, sometimes to connect with spirits, and sometimes to ease long nights. The experience was subtle, gentle shifts, lightening mood, softening fear. For people facing daily dangers, these small escapes offered comfort, not breaks from reality, but softening of it. Long before history began, before myths were carved in stone, humans explored both the world around them and the one within, using what the land provided and discovering slowly and carefully the earliest altered states of mind. In the next part, We will meet a man preserved in ice thousands of years ago who carried herbs, mushrooms, and tools hinting at early rituals of getting high. We will learn his story next. High in the Alps, beneath layers of ancient snow and silent centuries of drifting ice, a lone traveler once made his way along the high ridges of what we now know as the Ötztal Mountains, moving through an unforgiving landscape with only the things he could carry and the wisdom passed down through generations before him. His name, given long after his final breath, is Ötzi the Iceman, and he lived more than 5,000 years ago, in a time before cities, before written language, before even the wheel had become widespread. When his body was discovered by hikers in 1991, it was far more than an archaeological curiosity. Ötzi was a fully preserved human being from the Copper Age, a frozen snapshot of a life once lived in motion. His body carried tattoos, over 60 in total, most of them arranged along lines of tension in the back and joints, suggesting that he may have used these markings for pain relief or in some kind of therapeutic or symbolic healing tradition. His clothing was made from animal hides, layered and sewn with sinew, prepared carefully for cold weather travel. He had a copper-bladed axe, a flint knife, and arrows still under construction in his quiver. But among the most quietly revealing items he carried were 2 different types of dried mushrooms, tucked carefully into his leather pouch. One of these was birch polypore, which has antimicrobial properties and has long been associated with traditional healing, while the other, the tinder fungus, was ideal for transporting embers and may have also served other purposes, perhaps calming, soothing, or gently mind-altering when burned or inhaled in smoke. While we cannot know exactly how Ötzi used these plants, the care with which they were stored and the types of fungi chosen suggested deeper knowledge of their effects. It's possible that in moments of rest, he sat by his small fire and placed pieces of mushroom on the embers, breathing in their earthy aroma as the wind shifted in the mountains. These experiences likely didn't involve strong or overpowering changes, but rather subtle adjustments to how the world felt, perhaps a slight easing of pain, or a sense of relaxation, or a softening of mood after long, cold journeys. For prehistoric people, the boundary between body and mind was not sharply drawn. Relief from pain, from hunger, or from emotional weight may have come from the same roots, leaves, and fungi that also helped them stay warm, heal wounds, or prepare for sleep. Across the ancient world, other early communities were doing similar things, experimenting, observing, remembering. In the highlands of Central Asia, researchers have discovered traces of early ritual fires where people burned plants like wild hemp in enclosed spaces. In parts of South America, even before the rise of farming, early humans chewed the leaves of stimulating plants to help endure difficult journeys. In Africa and the Middle East, fermented roots and naturally occurring herbs were added to drinks or burned in communal spaces to support well-being or create shared calming experiences. These weren't synthetic substances or isolated chemicals. They were natural, raw elements of the landscape, used with restraint and respect. Getting into a different state of mind was not a goal in itself, but a side effect of taking care of the body and staying in rhythm with the natural world. Imagine the simple quiet of those moments, a traveler pausing, breathing in warmth, allowing the tension in his muscles to ease just a little. Whether alone or among others, these early humans found ways to adjust their inner state using only what the world offered them. Their understanding came not from books, but from generations of trial, observation, and patient repetition. Ötzi's story, though ending in tragedy, offers a moment of connection, a view into how someone like him might have turned to nature for comfort, not just survival. His tools were for cutting, scraping, building, but his plants may have been for calming, healing, and entering a gentler state of awareness. In our next segment, we will explore how these early interactions with natural elements, smoke, light, sound, and silence, shaped not only the body and mind, but may have also helped spark the very first expressions of art, memory, and meaning in human history. Long before Ötzi climbed the high passes of the Alps, even before metal tools or stitched clothing, early humans gathered around low fires in darkened caves, sheltered from the wind and the cold, their lives shaped by rhythms of daylight, weather, and the steady movements of animals they followed across the land. In these dim spaces, hidden deep in the stone, we find some of the earliest evidence of human thought made visible: painted hands, swirling patterns, and animals stretched in motion across rough rock walls. These caves, scattered across Europe, Africa, and parts of Asia, were not homes in the usual sense. They seem to have been reserved for something else. Quiet places set apart, where time felt different and where certain activities took place that carried more meaning than hunting or shelter. In many of these caves, signs point to an atmosphere of ritual or altered awareness. The darkness, the echo of breath against stone, the flicker of firelight casting shadows that danced and shifted. These spaces weren't just visual, but sensory. Researchers have found that many cave chambers with the most intricate art also have strong acoustic properties. Sounds carry and bounce in strange ways, making quiet singing or rhythmic drumming into something immersive, almost trance-like. In some caves, pigment was blown onto the walls through hollowed reeds, leaving outlines of hands as if marking presence or memory. Elsewhere, red ochre and charcoal were used to create animals in motion: bison leaping, horses galloping, deer running, all layered one over the other, as though capturing not just the creature, but the feeling of movement and time. Alongside this artwork, traces of burnt herbs, resins, and natural compounds have been found, suggesting that smoke and scent played a role in whatever was taking place within those walls. The smells would have been earthy, on embers, sharp, or ground sometimes into powders. Sweet. These natural materials may have produced mild effects on mood, awareness, or body sensation. It's not difficult to imagine a small group of people sitting close together, the only light from a fire reflecting off stone walls, the air thick with warmth and scent, their minds gently shifting from the ordinary to the symbolic. These experiences wouldn't have been labeled or explained. They were simply part of being alive in a world where meaning was sensed before it was spoken. The connection between natural elements and mental states may have been felt through rhythm, light, and scent, not studied or defined, but passed down through shared moments. Sound especially may have played a large role. Simple rhythms, tapping stones together, repeating chants, or humming softly in the dark could change how the body felt, slow the heart, deepen breathing, and create a feeling of connection or flow. Combined with flickering light and the scent of familiar herbs, this could guide early minds into states of calm reflection or vivid imagination. Some researchers suggest that these quiet, altered states helped spark symbolic thinking, the ability to represent something, to imagine what is not present, to remember what is gone, or to hope for what has not yet come. Cave art could be the earliest visible sign of this shift. Not just marks on a wall, but expressions of experience filtered through sensation and memory. And while we cannot be certain what early humans felt in those moments, we can look at the layers of their surroundings and recognize the elements of comfort, repetition, and sensory immersion that make up the foundation of ritual even today. The use of soft smoke, rhythmic sound, darkness, and image echoes the elements we still use to settle our minds: firelight, music, memory, breath. The caves were spaces of stillness, but also of quiet transformation, where early people may have touched something just beyond their normal state of mind, guided not by instruction, but by the slow discovery of what plants, sounds, and spaces could do. In the next segment, we'll shift our focus from early communal spaces to a different layer of ancient life. The people who lived differently, who held more influence or special roles, and how their access to rare plants or guarded knowledge may have shaped the first keepers of memory, ritual, and healing. As early communities became more complex, so too did the roles people played within them. While most individuals hunted, gathered, crafted tools, and raised children, there were always a few whose paths seemed to diverge. Those who stayed closer to the fire, who remembered stories longer, who listened more carefully to the sound of leaves in the wind, or noticed which plants helped a wound heal or made a fever break. These early observers of pattern, these quiet listeners, likely became the first keepers of special knowledge. They didn't hold power in the way kings or leaders would centuries later, but they held something more subtle, an ability to remember, to interpret, and to guide. In small communities where daily survival was shared work, the people who understood which herbs to gather or how to prepare certain roots might have been seen with respect or caution. They knew which leaves eased the stomach, which bark helped stop bleeding, and perhaps which combinations of smoke, warmth, and rhythm helped someone calm down after fear or grief. Some of these people may have played roles in early rituals or seasonal gatherings, helping others feel connected to the land, to memory, or to dreams. They might have been the ones who kept certain plants hidden or dried in special places, using them carefully and not often, reserving their effects for moments of meaning, times of illness, change, or loss. These were not scientists or doctors as we think of them today, but their knowledge was real, gathered through generations of observation, slow trial and error, and passed down through gesture, repetition, and quiet practice. In some regions, these individuals may have been involved in rites of passage, helping younger members of the group transition into adulthood with a sense of inner change or clarity, using herbs or rhythmic ceremonies to mark that shift. In others, they might have been seen as dream guides or memory holders, helping interpret unusual experiences or strange emotions through the patterns they saw in nature. The line between health, spirit, and community was not drawn sharply in ancient life. It flowed gently, and those who moved most easily within it were given roles that held deep trust. Access to certain rare plants may have been limited, not because of greed, but because of the responsibility they carried. The same root that eased pain might become dangerous if misused. The same smoke that soothed anxiety could overwhelm if too strong. Understanding these nuances was part of what made these early guides important. Across ancient regions, from the highlands of Asia to the forests of Africa and the valleys of Europe, we see echoes of this pattern. Certain graves filled with items not meant for battle or daily labor, but with bundles of dried plants, carved stones, or pigments carefully wrapped and buried with care. These were likely not warriors or chieftains, but individuals whose roles centered around healing, memory, and transformation. Perhaps they were the first herbalists, the first midwives, the first to help others rest, reflect, or enter a dreamlike space when needed. Their actions were not dramatic. There were no loud ceremonies or grand speeches, just the steady rhythm of hands grinding leaves, the whisper of breath through hollow reeds, the calm repetition of motions passed down from one generation to the next. In this way, early humans discovered not just how to survive, but how to care for the mind, how to bring stillness when fear crept in, how to mark grief, and how to prepare for the unknown. These quiet figures, seated beside the fire, watching smoke rise into the night sky, gave something lasting to the people around them. Moments of calm, small shifts in awareness, and a way of seeing the world not only as something to be endured, but something that could be understood, softened, and shared. In the final part of our journey, we'll step back and gently reflect on how these early practices still echo faintly through time, and how the very human desire for peace, rest, and clarity remains as strong today as it was in the quiet shadows of ancient caves and high mountain passes. And so we find ourselves at the end of this long and quiet path through time, having walked beside hunters and gatherers, healers and guides, travelers and dreamers who once stood beneath ancient skies and gathered the leaves, roots, and stones that shaped their days and softened their nights. From the quiet depths of painted caves to the cold slopes where Otzi once moved between stone and snow. From the low fires where early hands crushed herbs and watched the smoke rise, to the careful rituals passed down in silence and memory, we've traced a simple and enduring human desire, the need to feel something different, something more manageable, something calmer. Not through excess or escape, but through observation, rhythm, and trust in the natural world. These people didn't chase thrills or alter their senses for pleasure. They sought comfort, understanding, and healing, using only what the earth offered in its slow, generous cycles. And while the words we use today, relaxation, clarity, peace, rest, might be modern, the feelings are ancient. They were there in the soft hush of wind across grasslands, in the careful placement of pigment on stone, in the echo of a hum beneath cave ceilings, in the steam rising from a heated leaf, in the stillness between heartbeats as someone sat, closed their eyes, and let the world shift gently around them. That need hasn't changed. You feel it now in the quiet moments before sleep, in the simple wish for your mind to soften, your thoughts to slow, your breath to deepen. The ancient people we've explored tonight didn't have clocks or screens or endless motion, but they too knew how heavy the world could feel and how small things, warmth, scent, memory, rhythm, could carry them through. And maybe that's what lingers most from these stories, not the tools or the names or even the practices, but the reminder that the desire to find peace within the noise has always been with us. So as you settle now into your own space, with your own breath, your own quiet, let your mind drift like smoke from a gentle fire, upward and outward, fading slowly into the comfort of rest, carrying with it the faint echo of footsteps long since gone, of hands once steady with purpose, and of a world that, for all its difference, still moved to the same slow rhythms of need, care, and calm. Sleep well. The ocean covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface, but over 80% of it remains completely unexplored. That's not a slogan, it's a fact. We've taken more photos of the surface of Mars than the bottom of our own oceans. And that raises a question. What's hiding in the dark, where no human has ever seen and no sunlight can reach? This isn't science fiction, this is your planet. And right now, beneath your feet, in the vast black silence of the deep, things are moving. Imagine sinking into the ocean. At first, you're still near the surface. The sun filters down. You can see your hands, your body. Everything is familiar, blue, bright, open. This is called the epipelagic zone, the sunlight zone. It only reaches about 200 meters deep, that's it. And below that, everything changes. At 200 meters, you cross into the twilight zone. Light fades. Red is the first color to disappear. That's why many deep-sea creatures are bright red. It's their camouflage. To human eyes, they turn pitch black. As you fall deeper, orange vanishes, then yellow. By the time you reach 1,000 meters, light is gone completely. Total darkness. Not nighttime darkness. Absolute, crushing blackness. You're now in the midnight zone, and it's one of the most hostile environments on Earth. No light. No warmth. No surface level oxygen. Just pressure, and that pressure is immense. For every 10 meters you descend, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. By 1,000 meters, you're under 100 times the air pressure at sea level. It's like having an elephant stand on every square inch of your body. At 4,000 meters, it could crush a human submarine like a soda can. But here's the thing. Life still exists here. And not just microscopic life. There are fish that glow in the dark, bioluminescence, built right into their bodies. Some use it to hunt. Others use it to hide. There's a jellyfish called Atala wavillii that flashes like an emergency police light when attacked, attracting even bigger predators to scare off whatever's chasing it. Some creatures here don't have eyes. They don't need them. Others have eyes the size of dinner plates, evolved to catch even the faintest trace of light from far above. And the strangest thing, they don't look monstrous. They look alien. Here, gravity feels different. Time feels slower, and nothing is silent. Despite the crushing quiet, this part of the ocean is alive with sound. Whales send low-frequency calls that travel hundreds, sometimes thousands, of miles. The creaking of tectonic plates, the bubbling of deep vents, the crackling of shrimp and the pulsing of squid, all echo in the dark. The loudest recorded underwater sound, known only as the bloop, was heard across the Pacific in 1997. To this day, no one knows what made it. At these depths, sunlight has no power, but nature has adapted. There are anglerfish with light bulbs growing from their heads. Some have transparent skulls. You can literally see their brains. There are vampire squid, barrel-eye fish, and creatures that dissolve if you bring them to the surface. Their bones are soft. Their flesh is watery. They've evolved not to fight the pressure, but to surrender to it. They live in a world we can't reach. And most of them, we've never even seen. In fact, scientists estimate that we've only discovered around 10% of all deep-sea species. The other 90%, still out there, still hiding. And some might be far larger than anything we've imagined. Darker ambient tone begins to rise, deeper, heavier. So what lies below all of this? What's under the midnight zone, where light has never touched and sound barely reaches? The ocean keeps going. It doesn't stop at 1,000 meters, or 3,000, or even 6,000. Beneath the deepest parts of the ocean lies something far more alien. A place so extreme, Only a handful of humans have ever seen it with their own eyes. And what's living down there is something we might not be ready to meet. Down here, there's no sun, no plants, and no coral reefs, no photosynthesis. And yet, the midnight zone is full of life, but it's life unlike anything on the surface. Imagine evolving in total blackness, under thousands of pounds of pressure, with no visual cues and no easy meals. What would you become? Let's meet the locals. The barrel-eye fish. It looks like something out of science fiction. It has a completely transparent head. You can literally see its brain and optic nerves. Inside that clear dome are two green tubes, its eyes, not facing forward, but straight up, through its skull. Why? Because it floats motionless in the dark, watching for the silhouette of prey above. It doesn't chase, it waits. And when something small enough swims by, it strikes with speed and precision. That's the barrel eye, silent, still smart. Octopus, the vampire squid. Despite the name, it doesn't suck blood, but it does live over 3,000 feet deep in almost complete darkness. Its skin is jet black with glowing blue eyes, and it can eject threads of bioluminescent mucus instead of ink, because ink doesn't work in total darkness. It has webbed arms and can fold itself inside out like an umbrella to protect its soft inner body. And when threatened, it flashes bright lights from the tips of its arms to startle predators in the pitch-black sea. This creature doesn't hunt. It floats slowly through the water, feeding on marine snow, dead organic matter falling from the surface above. It doesn't chase. It waits, like most things down here. The fauntooth. Now, imagine a fish with teeth so large, it can't even close its mouth. That's the fauntooth. Despite being only about 6 inches long, it has the largest teeth relative to its body size of any fish in the ocean. Its teeth are so big, the upper jaw has sockets in the skull to make room when the mouth closes. Its eyes are small, its skin is rough. Its mood, always foul. This is not a curious fish. It's built for one thing: bite, clamp, swallow. And it can survive at depths of 16,000 feet, well beyond what almost any submersible can reach. Blowfish, the blobfish, misunderstood. Most people have seen the viral meme version of the blobfish, a sad, droopy-looking pink lump. But that's not what it actually looks like in its natural habitat. On the seafloor, where it evolved to live under immense pressure, it's compact, firm, and perfectly adapted to the crushing environment. It has no swim bladder, because it doesn't need to float. It just rests on the bottom, barely moving, and waits for food to drift by. It's slow, passive, efficient. Above sea level, it collapses under normal pressure, turning into a gelatinous mess. But down below, it's doing just fine. Flashlight light, darkness, and camouflage. Here, bioluminescence isn't rare. It's the norm. Some creatures flash to communicate, others to scare predators. Some even dangle glowing lures in front of their mouths, like the anglerfish, to bait prey close enough to strike. There's a squid that glows on its back to mimic moonlight, making it invisible from below. It's called counter-illumination, a built-in stealth system. And then there are those who generate sudden light explosions, brief flashes to startle predators or disorient their prey. Think of it like underwater flashbang grenades. In a world of darkness, light becomes a weapon. Brain intelligence in the deep? Some researchers believe deep-sea cephalopods, like squids and octopuses, might have intelligence we don't fully understand. They solve puzzles, they escape enclosures. They can open jars, use tools, and mimic other species. One octopus was caught on video stealing cameras from divers and rearranging its den using rocks like building blocks. But here's the scary part. We've barely studied the ones that live past 3,000 meters. We have no idea how smart they are, because getting down there is almost impossible. DNA, we've only scratched the surface. Every year, we discover 2,000 to 3,000 new marine species, and that's just in the parts of the ocean we can reach. NOAA scientists estimate there are millions of species we haven't even identified. The deeper we go, the weirder they get. And in many cases, we only find them once, briefly captured on camera, never seen again. One fish was discovered at nearly 27,000 feet, the deepest living fish ever recorded. It had soft, translucent skin, no scales, and a fragile body that would literally explode if brought to the surface. That means There are creatures so adapted to the deep, they can only exist in total darkness, under crushing pressure, forever hidden from the surface world. SFS, subtle bass pulse, slight rise in intensity. And if nature has built things this strange in the places we can reach, what has it built in the places we can't? Deep beneath the midnight zone lies a world even more hostile. A place without sunlight, warmth, or any trace of surface life. This is the abyssal zone, a region that stretches between 3,000 and 6,000 meters deep, covering more than half of the ocean floor. Here, the temperature hovers just above freezing. The pressure is so intense it can crush steel. The landscape is flat, vast, and silent. It looks lifeless, but it's not. There are strange starfish drifting over the sediment, eels winding slowly like ghostly ribbons, and creatures that have never been seen outside this eternal blackness. But even this isn't the deepest part. Below the abyss lies the Hadal Zone, a word taken from Hades, the underworld. These are the deepest trenches on Earth, and inside them, life still clings on. Take the Mariana Trench, over 11,000 meters deep. That's deeper than Mount Everest is tall. At the very bottom, in the Challenger Deep, there is no light, no heat, and the pressure is over 1,000 times greater than at the surface. And yet, in 2012, scientists recorded living organisms there. Amphipods, small crustaceans, squirming in the mud. In 2020, a snailfish was filmed swimming near the bottom, its body translucent, soft, barely holding itself together. But it was alive. IT had adapted to a place no human could survive. And it wasn't alone. These trenches are littered with life. Unseen, unrecorded, unexplained. Many of these organisms feed on marine snow, the constant rain of dead organic material falling from above. Others rely on something even stranger. Deep underwater volcanoes, hydrothermal vents. These vents spew boiling water and minerals into the freezing ocean, creating temperatures that can reach over 700 degrees Fahrenheit. They exist along mid-ocean ridges, where tectonic plates shift and the Earth bleeds heat. And around them, entire ecosystems have evolved, completely cut off from sunlight. Here, bacteria feed on chemicals like hydrogen sulfide instead of light. And larger creatures feed on those bacteria. Giant tube worms, some over 6 feet long, live in clusters around the vents. They have no mouths, no stomachs. Instead, they absorb nutrients through a symbiotic relationship with bacteria inside their bodies. Then there are vent crabs, eyeless shrimp, heat-resistant fish, all surviving in an environment that should kill them instantly. These ecosystems don't rely on the sun. They rely on Earth itself. And they challenge everything we thought we knew about what life needs to exist. In fact, many scientists believe these deep-sea vents could be the birthplace of life on Earth, where chemistry, heat, and pressure created the first building blocks of biology. If that's true, then maybe life didn't begin in sunlight. Maybe it began in darkness. Maybe what we think of as alien is actually ancient. And the deeper we go, the older things get. Fossils have been found near these trenches, evidence of species that haven't changed in millions of years. Living fossils, creatures that have survived multiple mass extinctions, hidden from meteor strikes, surface heat waves, and climate shifts. Because down here, nothing changes quickly. It's a world frozen in time. But despite the stillness, something is always moving, something always watching. Submarines have captured footage of massive, unexplained shapes in the dark. Shadows longer than buses, moving without sound. Some believe they're just deep currents stirring sediment. Others aren't so sure. In 2016, researchers in the Gulf of Mexico recorded what looked like a giant squid, stretching more than 20 feet long. It appeared, hovered in front of the camera, and then disappeared into the black. That footage remains one of the clearest pieces of evidence that enormous, unknown life still swims in the deep. And that wasn't an isolated incident. Remote cameras have caught glimpses of long, serpentine forms, blobs that drift in patterns not consistent with jellyfish or whales. And sounds, unexplained pulses, metallic bangs, low-frequency groans, heard thousands of feet below the surface. No known geological activity. And unknown animal. Just noise, then silence. It's not that there's nothing down there. It's that we've barely looked. The average person knows more about the moon than the Hadal trenches of Earth. And when we do send machines down, They only last for hours before needing to return. The pressure destroys equipment. The temperature warps steel. Communication lags or cuts off completely. We are not welcome here. But life has always been here. In the deepest parts of our world, creatures have evolved beyond our comprehension. In silence, in darkness. In solitude, not monsters, not aliens. Just life, doing what it does best, surviving. And if they've adapted to that, what else might they be capable of? Most people assume Earth has been explored, that we've seen it all. But when it comes to the deep ocean, we've barely even begun. Over 80% of it remains unmapped and unexplored. That's not just a guess, it's a fact. We've mapped the surface of Mars and the Moon more thoroughly than we've mapped the floor of our own oceans. And the reason is simple. It's almost impossible to reach. Light disappears a few hundred meters below the surface. At 1,000 meters, it's pitch black. But that's just the beginning. As you go deeper, pressure builds rapidly. For every 10 meters you descend, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. By 6,000 meters, the pressure is more than 600 times what you feel at sea level. That's enough to crush steel. Most underwater robots can only survive a few hours before being forced back to the surface. Human missions are even rarer. More people have walked on the Moon than have visited the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The vehicles we do use are expensive, fragile, and limited. And even when they survive the descent, they can only explore small patches of ocean floor. Most of what we know about the deep sea comes from sonar imaging. It gives us rough outlines, but no fine details. Unless we send a camera down, we have no idea what's really there. And we almost never send cameras. There are massive underwater mountain ranges bigger than anything on land. Entire volcanic zones that erupt without us noticing. Deep trenches that stretch for hundreds of miles, completely unvisited. And whenever we do get a look, we almost always find something strange. In 1977, scientists discovered hydrothermal vents, cracks in the ocean floor releasing superheated water and minerals. Around them were creatures no one had seen before. Giant tube worms over 6 feet long, crabs without eyes, bacteria that survive on chemicals like hydrogen sulfide. These organisms don't need sunlight. They don't even need the surface. They live in complete darkness, surrounded by extreme pressure and boiling water. And they're thriving. That discovery changed our understanding of life on Earth. It showed us that life doesn't need light. It doesn't need warmth. It just needs a source of energy. Since then, every deep-sea expedition has returned with something new. Footage of strange animals, recordings of unknown sounds, sonar hits that don't match anything we've seen before. But most of these things go unstudied. We don't have the money or the time to investigate everything. A weird recording is filed away. A strange shape is noted and forgotten. In many cases, we never return to those places again. There are miles of trenches we've never even looked at. Some scientists believe we've only discovered 10% of all marine species. That means the majority of life in the ocean could still be completely unknown to us. Not because it's hiding, but because we've never looked. In 2016, a deep-sea microphone recorded a strange sound near Antarctica that lasted several minutes. It was loud, repeating, and didn't match any known animal, earthquake, or underwater event. To this day, it hasn't been explained. And that's just one example. Similar sounds have been recorded all over the world. Some sound like metallic bangs. Others are deep, low groans that echo for miles. But because these places are so hard to reach, we can't go back to find the source. So they're marked as unexplained and left behind. The ocean is not quiet. It's alive, moving, breathing, shifting. And every time we go a little deeper, we find more questions. What kinds of creatures live in total darkness? How do they survive? What do they eat? What happens when they die? And what happens when we finally build technology strong enough to stay down longer? The truth is, we just don't know. There could be massive animals living in the deepest parts of the ocean. There could be intelligent life that's adapted to the dark. Creatures that don't need eyes. Creatures that never surface. And they would never have to come near us. Because we can't reach them. Not yet. Our submersibles are improving. Our sonar is getting sharper. But we're still far from seeing everything. And the more we learn, the stranger it gets. There are animals that glow with their own light. Some use electrical signals to hunt. Some float for years, barely moving, waiting for food to fall from above. Some have never been filmed, never been captured, never been classified. And if something larger lives down there, something that's managed to avoid detection this long, it could do so forever. Not because it's hiding, but because we've never looked long enough to notice. The deep ocean isn't empty, that it's unknown. And as we stare into the black, trying to understand what's down there, we need to remember something. The ocean is staring back. The ocean is full of mysteries. Not fantasy, not myths. Real, recorded events that scientists still don't have answers for. One of the most famous is a sound. In 1997, underwater microphones in the Pacific picked up something strange. It was loud. It was deep. It lasted over a minute. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration called it the bloop. It didn't match any known animal, ship, or geological activity. And it came from a remote location in the southern Pacific, far from any human presence. Some theories said it might be ice breaking off Antarctica. Others suggested it could be a new species, larger than anything we've ever discovered. The truth, no one knows. The bloop was never heard again, but it wasn't the only one. There are dozens of strange sounds recorded from the deep ocean every year. Some are mechanical, others sound organic. Many are never repeated. They're documented, studied for a while, and eventually filed away as unknown. But it's not just sound. In 2014, a NOAA research team sent an unmanned submersible down into the Atlantic. What it recorded was something unexpected. As it moved along the seafloor, its camera picked up a long, snake-like creature. It moved too smoothly to be debris. It had segments. It had motion. It was alive, but no one knows what it was. It didn't match any known species. The footage went viral among researchers, but no conclusion was ever reached. It's never been seen again. Then there's the Nin, a massive, pale humanoid creature supposedly spotted by Japanese research vessels in the Southern Ocean. Reports describe it as 30 feet long, with arms, a face, and a tail. Some photos exist, but they're blurry and unconfirmed. Scientists dismiss it as a hoax, but the crew members who reported it, they've stayed quiet. Some say they were told not to speak. Others disappeared from public view completely. Whether it's real or not, no one has proven it either way. The ocean doesn't give up its secrets easily. In 2018, a deep-sea rover exploring near Puerto Rico recorded a large shadow passing just beneath its camera. No animal was visible, but the movement of water and falling sediment suggested something massive had passed by. The camera was quickly redirected, but nothing was found. The team reviewing the footage estimated the object was at least 40 feet long, but without a clear view, no classification could be made. Then there are the disappearances. Submarines have vanished without a trace, even in modern times. In 1968 alone, 4 submarines from different countries went missing. 1 American, 1 Soviet, 1 Israeli, and 1 French. All in different parts of the world. All lost under the sea. Most were never found. Some wrecks were later discovered, but with no clear explanation for why they sank. No distress calls. No survivors. Just silence. The ocean is full of shipwrecks we've never located. And in some cases, entire planes have vanished over water with no debris found. In 2007, a team exploring the Mid-Atlantic Ridge found what looked like artificial structures, pillars, flat stone surfaces, geometric patterns, over 2 miles below the surface. The discovery was photographed, but later dismissed as natural formations. Still, the patterns were strange, too precise. Some researchers believe ancient civilizations could have been lost to rising seas thousands of years ago, and the ocean floor might still hold traces. Then there are the sightings. In 2022, a research drone captured footage of a large cephalopod-like creature far below what's considered safe pressure levels for squid. The creature was long, with tendrils that extended over 30 feet. It moved slowly, deliberately, and stayed just outside the light range of the camera. When the footage was analyzed, researchers were divided. Some said it was a giant squid. Others argued the proportions were wrong. The shape didn't match. It hasn't been seen since. We have thousands of hours of deep-sea video that still hasn't been reviewed. The footage exists, but we lack the time, budget, or manpower to look at it all. Inside that data could be things we were never meant to find. Evidence of new life, or evidence of something we can't explain. The ocean is still a blank canvas, and every strange sound, every shadow, every blurred image is a clue. We just haven't connected them yet. And maybe we're not supposed to, because every time we get close to answers, something pulls us back. Something reminds us that we're not in control down there, that we're just visitors, that the deep ocean is ancient. And it remembers, in the deep ocean, nothing is ever fully explained. Every time we think we've seen the strangest thing, something new changes the rules. In 2004, a U.S. Navy sonar array in the North Atlantic picked up an object moving underwater at speeds faster than any known submarine. It traveled in a straight path for over 6 minutes, moving deeper, then sharply changing direction. It wasn't a whale, it wasn't a seismic event. And according to military reports, no man-made craft could survive those speeds at that depth. The object was never identified. Some called it a false reading. But the exact same movement was recorded again in 2011. Same location, same depth, same speed. This time by civilian sonar, still unexplained. It's not the only time strange motion has been tracked underwater. In 1995, a Russian deep-sea vessel reported being followed by something massive. The sonar registered a large object that moved silently, keeping pace just behind their ship. When they turned to investigate, it vanished. They scanned the area for hours. Nothing. In 1976, the body of a whale washed ashore in South Africa. But it didn't match any known species. It had smooth, white skin, a narrow, beak-like head, and flipper placements that didn't align with any marine mammal in the database. Locals called it the Margate monster. Scientists labeled it a decomposed basking shark. But the internal organs, teeth, and skull fragments didn't match. To this day, no sample was preserved. Only photos remain. In 2014, deep-sea researchers exploring near the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench spotted a field of holes in the seafloor. Each hole was perfectly round, about 6 inches wide, and stretched across the ocean bottom in a grid pattern for over 400 meters. The team had no explanation. There was no sign of geothermal activity, no debris, nothing had fallen from above. And yet, the pattern was too perfect to be random. Some suggested burrowing creatures. Others thought it might be the result of unknown current interactions. But the same holes were spotted again, thousands of miles away, in the mid-Atlantic. No known species or geological process explains it. In 2003, a commercial fishing boat pulled up its net and found more than just fish. Inside were the remains of an unidentifiable creature. It had soft, rubbery skin, a wide, flattened body, and 3 sets of fins. The fishermen said it was still slightly moving when they brought it on board. But by the time scientists arrived, it had decomposed beyond study. No one has ever caught another like it. Some think it was a deep-sea species pulled up too fast. Others think it was something completely new. Then there are the so-called false corpses. Human remains recovered from the sea that defy normal decomposition patterns. In 2018, 2 divers off the coast of Norway discovered a body wedged into a rocky trench. It had no visible wounds, but its skin was pale blue and leathery. The body showed almost no bloating, and the fingernails were described as fused together. An autopsy later claimed natural causes, but the divers and local police reported being told to remain silent about the case. The body's identity was never released. Even natural events in the deep ocean don't behave as expected. In 2011, after the Tohoku earthquake in Japan, sensors on the ocean floor recorded an intense energy spike, not from the quake, but from something that happened hours later. A powerful vibration traveled along the seafloor, separate from aftershocks. It was long, rhythmic, and repeated every 26 seconds for over an hour. Seismologists still have no explanation. The same pattern has been heard before in multiple oceans. Always deep, always regular, always unexplained. Some call it the hum. Others think it could be tectonic activity we don't understand yet. But one unsettling detail keeps surfacing. It's directional. It travels in a line, as if something is moving. We know the ocean is filled with strange creatures. Giant squids, vampire squid, deep-sea jellyfish, and animals with transparent bodies or bioluminescent patterns. But for all we've discovered, there's even more we've never seen. Submersibles often detect vibrations or movement outside the camera's view. They sense pressure changes or ripples in the water with no visible cause. One mission in the Indian Ocean was forced to abort when their pressure sensors spiked rapidly with no known source nearby. The equipment was recovered, and footage was later reviewed. For 3 seconds, the light from the submersible bent unnaturally, as if the water around it had warped. Then everything returned to normal, and no explanation was found. Scientists said it could be a lighting error, but the team that experienced it refused to go back. When questioned, they described the moment as feeling like something massive had passed above them. Something that didn't disturb the water, just the light. The deeper we go, the more questions we find, and the deeper the mystery becomes.
For every mystery we've uncovered in the deep ocean, there are dozens more we've never followed up on. Not because they aren't interesting, but because we can't. The equipment breaks. The mission ends, funding disappears, and so the story fades away, buried beneath the next big discovery. But some mysteries refuse to stay buried. In 2001, a team of oil researchers using sonar in the Gulf of Mexico discovered a perfectly round structure on the seafloor. It was roughly 70 feet wide, raised in the center and surrounded by evenly spaced indentations. It was recorded, marked as unusual, and then forgotten. But in 2009, a different research vessel mapped the same region and reported that the structure was gone. The seafloor appeared smooth, flat, undisturbed. No trace remained. Either the structure had moved or it had never been real to begin with. But sonar readings don't vanish, and the original data remains unexplained. In 2015, an unmanned drone exploring the Pacific spotted what looked like a large opening in the seabed, circular, rimmed with what appeared to be raised rock, and deep enough that the submersible's lights couldn't see the bottom. As it approached, the footage suddenly cut out. The drone went offline. It was recovered the next day, floating on the surface with no damage. All internal data had been wiped. Only the live stream footage survived. No other mission has revisited the site, and to this day, its coordinates remain unlisted. There are also reports from divers who describe underwater currents that appear and vanish without warning, strong enough to push a full-sized submersible off course, but narrow enough to fit within a small section of seafloor. Some believe these are caused by underwater landslides. Others say they might be something else. One diver in the Mediterranean described feeling intense pressure and silence right before his instruments stopped working. When his backup lights turned on, he realized he had drifted nearly 200 meters from his last position, with no memory of the shift. His footage showed static. His depth sensors registered no change, and his oxygen levels had dropped more than expected. He described it as falling without movement. These kinds of stories are often dismissed. People assume they're exaggerated or confused. But when the same patterns repeat, blackouts, missing data, unexplained sensations, they start to form something bigger, a pattern. The ocean's mysteries don't always involve monsters or massive creatures. Sometimes the scariest part is realizing how much we still don't understand. There are ecosystems we've never seen, entire biomes trapped inside underwater caves, sealed for thousands of years, lakes that sit beneath the ocean, made of dense brine that forms its own shoreline, with creatures that swim only in that toxic layer. In 2020, a team in the Gulf of California found what they described as a bubbling crater, releasing clouds of methane into the sea in slow pulses. Around it, strange plant life grew in perfect rings, with no matching samples found anywhere else. The gas was cold, the plants were alive, and no one knows why. Then there are regions where electronics behave strangely, compasses spin, cameras malfunction, lights dim for no reason. These areas are often ignored because they're hard to study, but the reports keep coming. One such zone exists off the coast of Peru. Fishermen report seeing lights beneath the water. Not reflections, not boats, just soft moving lights that drift slowly beneath their hulls and vanish when approached. Military radar sometimes picks up unregistered contacts there. But when investigated, nothing is found. The official explanation is radar noise, but no one's sure. These aren't myths. These aren't stories from centuries ago. They're documented, logged, filed away in databases that few people ever read, and yet they all point to the same truth. We've barely begun to understand the deep sea. For all our satellites, sensors, and AI tools, we are still blind to what lies beneath us. Every deep dive into the ocean is a risk, not because of monsters, but because of the unknown, because the pressure is intense, the darkness is absolute, and time feels different down there, a place where sound travels in strange ways, where heat comes from the earth itself, where time seems to stretch, and anything out of place could remain undiscovered for centuries. The ocean doesn't play by our rules. It doesn't give up its secrets unless it wants to. And when it does, it usually leaves more questions than answers. Maybe some of those mysteries will be solved one day. Maybe not, but for now, we can only keep exploring, keep listening, keep watching, and wonder what's waiting just beyond the reach of our lights.
When we talk about exploring the Earth, we often think of mountaintops, jungles, deserts, or the vast Arctic. But the greatest unexplored frontier is not above us or around us, it's beneath us. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet's surface. It holds 97% of all the water on Earth. Yet, more than 80% of it remains unmapped, unobserved, and largely unknown. For centuries, humans were only able to interact with the surface. Sailing across the water, casting nets, or diving shallow reefs, that was our limit. The deep ocean was a mystery. No light. Crushing pressure. A cold silence that stretched for miles. But in the last century, our technology caught up with our curiosity. Sonar, short for sound navigation and ranging, became the first tool to map the hidden landscape below. It works by sending sound waves down into the water, which bounce back when they hit the seafloor. The return time and strength help create a rough map of the terrain. It's not a picture, but more like an echo map, ghostly outlines of mountains, valleys, and plains beneath the waves. With enough sonar sweeps, we reconstructed the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a mountain range running the length of the Atlantic Ocean's floor. We mapped the Mariana Trench, the deepest known point on Earth, nearly 11 kilometers deep. Sonar gave us the shape of the ocean, but not its secrets. To see, we needed to send eyes down. That's where remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, came in. These are machines controlled from ships above, connected by cables that send commands and bring back data. Equipped with cameras, lights, and robotic arms, ROVs can explore depths no human diver could survive. In 2012, a team used an ROV to capture the first ever footage of a giant squid in its natural habitat, ending decades of speculation. These machines revealed strange creatures and landscapes no one had imagined, from hydrothermal vents bursting with life to ghostly jellyfish drifting in the dark. Autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, are a new generation of robotic explorers. Unlike ROVs, they are untethered. Pre-programmed to survey large areas, they can operate independently for hours or days, collecting data about temperature, salinity, currents, and the presence of life. Their quiet glide disturbs marine life far less, allowing more natural observations. Some are designed to withstand the immense pressure of the deepest trenches, bringing back information from places humans have never set foot. Manned submersibles, which carry humans deep underwater, are few and far between. Vehicles like the DSV Alvin have made history exploring shipwrecks like the Titanic and investigating hydrothermal vents. James Cameron's Deep-Sea Challenger expedition in 2012 reached the Mariana Trench's deepest point, a record-setting dive that proved humans can visit these extreme places. But manned exploration is dangerous and expensive, reserved only for the most significant missions. Now, artificial intelligence is revolutionizing ocean science. AI algorithms analyze huge datasets from sonar scans, underwater videos, and environmental sensors. They can detect patterns, identify species from blurry images, and even predict where new ecosystems may exist. AI can sift through mountains of data far faster than humans, guiding new explorations and helping us understand the vast, complex ocean system more deeply. Despite all this progress, the ocean remains one of the last truly unexplored frontiers. Less than 1% of the deep sea has been seen directly by human eyes or machines. The deeper we go, the stranger and more alien the environment becomes. Life adapts in ways that challenge what we think is possible. Energy is scarce, so creatures move slowly and conserve resources. The laws of physics sometimes seem to bend, and our assumptions break down. But exploration isn't just about discovery. It's about survival. The seafloor is a dynamic, shifting place. Underwater fault lines can trigger earthquakes and tsunamis. Hydrothermal vents release chemicals that sustain life but also indicate volcanic activity. Large reservoirs of methane trapped beneath the ocean floor could, if released suddenly, affect the global climate or trigger mass extinctions. Understanding these systems is critical for predicting natural disasters and protecting our planet. The ocean also faces threats from human activity. Pollution has reached even the most remote and deepest corners of the sea. Microplastics, tiny plastic fragments smaller than a grain of sand, have been found in the guts of amphipods living nearly 7 miles beneath the surface in the Mariana Trench. Chemical runoff from agriculture and industry seeps through the water column, entering fragile food chains we barely understand. Ghost nets, lost or discarded fishing gear, entangle and kill marine animals and slowly accumulate on the seafloor, damaging habitats. Entire shipping containers have fallen off cargo ships, sinking and becoming artificial reefs or hazards in the ocean depths. Our footprint reaches places we cannot yet fully explore or protect. The ocean is not just a place to study, it's a place we must safeguard. Every unknown creature, every unmapped trench, every undiscovered ecosystem reminds us how little we know, and how much we risk losing before understanding it. While the surface waters warm due to climate change, the deep ocean is a slow-moving system that responds gradually but dramatically. Melting polar ice alters currents and salinity, affecting oxygen levels and the delicate balance of life. Acidification from absorbed carbon dioxide changes water chemistry, threatening coral reefs and shell-forming animals even at depth. Scientists are only beginning to grasp how these changes ripple through the deep ocean's ecosystems, many of which form the foundation of life on Earth. We are explorers on a shrinking planet, racing against time to understand and protect this vast underwater world. The ocean connects to every part of our planet's climate, weather, and life cycles. Its health is inseparable from our own. Despite all our technology and knowledge, it still keeps most of its secrets hidden in the darkness. Now we come to the most speculative and fascinating part of this journey, the possibility of enormous, unknown creatures living in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. This is where science brushes up against imagination. Not wild fantasy, but scientific possibility grounded in what we already know. The ocean is vast beyond comprehension. The Pacific Ocean alone is larger than all the land masses combined, and its trenches are deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Even in the 21st century, we have spent only a handful of hours observing the deepest zones. Creatures like the giant squid, once the stuff of legend, were only filmed alive in their natural environment within the last few decades. The colossal squid, which can grow even larger, remains elusive and largely unknown. Given this, could there be other, larger creatures out there, too shy, too rare, or too perfectly camouflaged to have been seen yet? It's not impossible. The fossil record shows us that oceans once hosted gigantic predators, creatures that ruled the seas for millions of years. Megalodon, a prehistoric shark estimated to be up to 60 feet long, was an apex predator far larger than any modern shark. Leviathan, a whale with massive teeth, hunted other whales. These giants disappeared millions of years ago, but some scientists theorize that stable conditions in the deep ocean could allow ancient lineages to survive, unchanged, for millions of years. Deep ocean trenches and isolated ecosystems could act like natural time capsules. The extreme pressure, cold, and darkness slow metabolism and evolutionary rates. Competition and predation are reduced, creating niches where ancient species might persist in isolation. This is not pure speculation. Scientists have found living fossils, in the ocean, species virtually unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, like the coelacanth fish. Many ancient cultures told stories of sea monsters, leviathans, krakens, giant serpents. These tales often share common features: enormous size, tentacles or multiple limbs, glowing eyes, strange sounds from the deep. While myths can be exaggerated, some elements have real-world parallels. The giant squid has eyes the size of dinner plates, perfect for seeing in darkness. Whales produce vocalizations that travel thousands of miles underwater. Some jellyfish produce eerie bioluminescent patterns that resemble signals or lights. It's possible that some myths were based on real sightings of rare or unknown creatures. The deeper you go, the less energy is available, and life adapts accordingly. Many deep-sea creatures move slowly, conserving energy. Some barely age, they grow and reproduce at a glacial pace. Imagine a creature the size of a bus that only moves once a day, emits no light, and has skin that perfectly blends with the rocky seabed. It would be nearly impossible to detect with sonar or cameras. It might live in underwater trenches or among cliffs, appearing like stone or coral. It could come out only at night, feeding on slow-moving prey or organic debris drifting down from above. Such a creature could have evaded discovery simply because it is so well adapted to invisibility. Sonar readings occasionally detect large, unexplained shapes moving deep beneath the waves. In 1991, a Japanese research vessel recorded a long, sinuous shape swimming below 1,000 meters depth. It was unlike any known whale or shark. It changed direction mid-scan and was never seen again. Similar incidents occur from time to time. Without physical evidence, these remain mysteries. Scientists approach such sightings with caution. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but the ocean has taught us to keep an open mind. Could a massive, unknown predator exist in the deep ocean? Could ancient species have survived for millions of years in cold, dark isolation? Could alien-like creatures be living beneath the surface of our own planet, evolving in silence? The honest answer is, we don't know. But the possibilities are not just entertaining, they're important. They remind us that Earth is not fully known. That there are still places of mystery. Still blank spots on the map. Still secrets waiting to be uncovered. Our planet's last great wilderness is not in the jungle or on distant mountains. It is in the dark, silent depths of the ocean. Exploring and understanding it isn't just curiosity, it's a journey into our planet's past, present, and future. The ocean shapes our climate, feeds billions, and holds untold stories. It demands respect and care. And as technology advances, who knows what we will find next? Creatures beyond imagination. Ecosystems unlike anything on land. And maybe, just maybe, the shadows of giants lurking where light can never reach. While science gives us a strong understanding of the ocean's boundaries, there are still real stories, well documented and puzzling, that challenge what we think we know. These aren't urban legends or sailors' tales. They're events recorded on sonar, by submarines, by naval authorities, and in some cases, witnessed by entire crews. Let's start in 1997 with something known as the bloop. A massive, ultra-low frequency sound was picked up by the NOAA hydrophone system, a network of underwater microphones designed to monitor submarine activity and natural oceanic events. This sound was unlike anything previously recorded. It was too loud to be man-made, yet it didn't match the frequency or pattern of any known geological phenomenon like earthquakes or icequakes. The sound originated near Point Nemo, the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, the farthest point from any land. What made it truly eerie was the fact that it resembled the audio profile of a living creature. But the amplitude was so massive that, if biological, the creature would have had to be many times larger than a blue whale. The official explanation now lists it as ice calving, but even scientists who work with NOAA have admitted the signature doesn't perfectly match that theory. Then there's the USS Stein incident. In the 1970s, a U.S. Navy destroyer escort called the USS Stein returned to port with damage to its sonar dome. The protective rubber coating was shredded, and embedded in the rubber were large claw-like hooks. Analysis showed they were biological in nature, similar to those found on tentacled creatures like squids, but the size of the hooks indicated something much, much larger. No known squid could be responsible. The event remains officially unexplained. In 1968, the Soviet submarine K-129 disappeared in the Pacific Ocean. Years later, the U.S. launched a covert operation called Project Azorian to recover part of it. During the mission, deep-sea footage taken by unmanned submersibles revealed unexpected biological activity around the wreck, unusual life forms not matching any known species catalogued by marine biologists. These were not aliens or monsters, but the incident sparked years of speculation that deep wrecks may act as attractors or shelters for strange, undocumented species that only emerge in the absence of light and human contact. Submariners from both the U.S. and Russian navies have reported what they call USOs, unidentified submerged objects. These are fast-moving anomalies that appear on sonar, moving at speeds impossible for known marine craft. In several cases, sonar operators reported contact with objects that stopped instantly or changed direction in a way no biological or technological system should be capable of. These were not surface echoes. They were tracked hundreds of meters below. In 2003, the British survey ship HMS Enterprise recorded a sonar contact with an object in the South Atlantic that measured over 100 meters long and moved against the current. The object maintained depth but shifted laterally for over 40 kilometers before vanishing. Divers and drones sent afterward found nothing. These events don't prove the existence of sea monsters or undiscovered megafauna. But they do highlight a reality: the deep ocean is full of surprises, and sometimes those surprises appear in our most advanced detection systems. And when we find something that doesn't fit, our response is usually to either classify it or dismiss it. But the ocean doesn't care about our categories. It just keeps moving. It's easy to forget that Earth is not a land planet with oceans, it's an ocean planet with land. If you could smooth out all the mountains and valleys of the seafloor, the entire surface of the Earth would be covered in water over 2 miles deep. Water defines our planet more than any single element. From space, Earth glows blue. The ocean regulates temperature, fuels the water cycle, drives weather patterns, and absorbs carbon dioxide. It is not a feature of the Earth, it is the system that keeps it alive. The ocean is also where life began. The earliest life forms, anaerobic microbes, originated in the deep, likely near hydrothermal vents, where energy and nutrients were abundant. These life forms existed long before the atmosphere contained oxygen. Some of them may still exist in the deep sea today, unchanged for billions of years. What if the ocean isn't just the origin of life, but the last safe place for it? If surface conditions ever became uninhabitable, whether due to climate change, war, or asteroid impact, the deep ocean could remain stable far longer than the surface. In theory, entire ecosystems could survive in isolation, sustained by chemosynthesis and deep water currents. The deep might be a final refuge, a slow-moving archive of biology waiting out surface disaster. This perspective also reframes how we search for life on other planets. Europa and Enceladus, moons of Jupiter and Saturn, have subsurface oceans beneath their icy crusts. They are among the top targets in the search for alien life. But our understanding of what those environments might contain is shaped by what we know about Earth's deep sea. If alien life exists, it probably doesn't walk on land. It swims in cold darkness, just like our deep-dwelling eels, worms, and glowing bacteria. Studying our oceans isn't just about this world, it's a window into others.